my name is Rita Rosenthal, and I teach in the July Kollel, the Dr. Beth Samuels High School program, and continuing education here at Drisha. This week's Parsha is Parashat Terumah, and it represents a moment of transition away from Yetziat Mitzrayim, the miracle of Kriyat Yam Suf, and the awe of Matan Torah, to the more long-term, let's call it, building of a relationship between Bnei Israel and God. Once the Jews left Egypt, it was important that they immediately become aware of God's power, and also that they set up a basic law code to govern their day-to-day lives, like we saw last week in Parashat Mishpatim. However, this moment of the building of the Mishkan that begins in Parashat Terumah marks a turning point from the immediate physical needs of Bnei Israel to the consideration of their longer-term spiritual needs. At the end of last week's Parsha, after receiving Aseret HaDibrot, and also the rest of the laws in Parashat Mishpatim, Bnei Israel had told God, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear, or perhaps we will do and we will understand. This is usually understood as a sign of the commitment of Bnei Israel, the fact that they're willing to act without fully understanding what they do. However, although the tradition lauds them for their willingness to do whatever God requires of them, without even knowing what it might be, ultimately that form of commitment is neither sustainable nor desirable. Instead, if Bnei Israel are to be God's partners, they must actively seek out God's presence and show that they wish to build that active relationship with God. That notion is perhaps best encapsulated in the famous pasuk from this week's Parsha, Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. You shall build me a sanctuary that I may dwell among you. This pasuk is striking because it highlights the degree to which God expects his relationship with Bnei Israel to be reciprocal going forward, instead of one-sided. No longer will God simply act for Bnei Israel, but instead, the responsibility now falls on the people for them to show that they wish to build that relationship as well. God will dwell among the people, but only if they create a space in which God's presence can be among them. The rabbinic tradition builds on this notion, explaining why it might be that God, who is omnipresent and omnipowerful, might need a place for people to build him where he can dwell. Two different midrashim suggest two different explanations. The first, from Mechilta de Rabbi Ishmael, the collection of Midrash Halacha and Sefer Shmod, the Midrash asks the following question: Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham, and you shall make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among you. Lama ne'emar, why is this said? Ve'lo kfar ne'emar, halo et hashamayim v'et haaretz ani maleh. But it is already said, it is not that I fill the heavens and the earth. And the answer is given, Ma Talmud lomar ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. So therefore, why does the Torah say, you shall make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among you? Kedei lekabel schar al ha'asiyah, to give merit to that action of building the Mishkan. The Midrash here is presenting one possible understanding of the role of the Mishkan, that the Mishkan is actually not for God at all, but instead it is for Bnei Israel. And it's through the act of giving of themselves, both time and in terms of money, that they are able to show God that they wish to have that relationship and therefore receive merit for those actions. However, the second explanation, which is found in the 11th parak of Avot Rabbi Natan, presents a different model for our understanding of God's relationship with the Jewish people. There it says, Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Af HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lo hasara shchina al Yisrael ad she'asu malacha. Rabbi Tarfon says, so too, the Holy One, blessed be He, did not cause the Shekhinah to rest upon Yisrael until they did work, until they did melacha. Shene'emar v'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. As it is written, and you shall make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among you. In this iteration, the building of the Mishkan is not commanded simply to gain merit for Bnei Israel, but actually required for God's presence to dwell among the people. This midrash is especially striking because it highlights the inherent reciprocity that must exist for Bnei Israel to have a relationship with God. The one-sided relationship of Mitzrayim, even one filled with the miracles that Bnei Israel have merited to experience, is not really a relationship at all. While God may have done everything for the people while they were slaves, now that they are free, they must understand that the paradigm has shifted, and they cannot expect to receive without giving in return. And indeed, this paradigm shift is indicative of what it means to have an adult relationship. Reciprocity exists, even between partners who might seem as unequal as people and God. It is not simply that God wants us to accrue merit, but rather that God wants a relationship with us, and therefore we must show that we crave that relationship as well. Even today, when it might seem that our relationship with God is less intimate than the one Bnei Israel had in the Midbar, it is a helpful understanding for the way that we can understand God in the world. Even if God is omnipresent, it is up to us to make that presence felt. It is our responsibility to build a world where Kedusha is a value so that God can dwell among us. Because we must remember that relationships at their best are deep partnerships. Shabbat Shalom.